Thank you. I'm privileged to be here for a number of reasons, but one of which is an outcomes unit like Davey wants to form and has formed and wants to gain more resources for is really important. In Western Ontario, you're always known, and I tried to steal technology people from here when we were doing Relay. We used to try and import them back to the United States. But Davey has a chance of making this a real center for outcomes. What I'm going to talk about tonight is exactly that. Why do you know about the Cleveland Clinic? If you do know about it, well, it's because it's been #1 in cardiac care for 18 years in a row by U.S. News and World Report. We do twice as much cardiac surgery as the next highest place in North America. We do roughly 6,000 open cardiac operations. We do something over 21,000 stents. All of that should go away. But the reason we got to be #1 is back in '73, we started measuring the outcome of everything we did. What do I mean by that? Well, if you were to have an operation at the Cleveland Clinic, you are a numerator and denominator by day 2 for anything you have. That is, your operation is recorded, your side effects, etc., and it's published. Now it's published on the web literally every day. So what I'm really talking about is how evidence-based practice can make your taxes lower. And I'm going to come to tell you that Canadian taxes can be reduced by 30% if you follow what I'm going to talk to you about. So those guys who pay taxes, pay attention. We all think of life as this way. This is quality of life, and this is age, and we think we hit our peak quality between 25 and 30, and it's all downhill after that. And it is. If you do nothing about it, you hit your peak quality for every physiologic function we can measure between 25 and 30. Your bone mass, your muscle mass, your cardiac output, everything we can measure hits their peak there. But it doesn't really have to decline like this. By the way, even your IQ goes like that. This is the IQ of Harvard physicians as they age. The study started in 1952. It's still, there are a few guys still around, which tells you what age of a physician you want to pick. The interesting thing, and they test them every 5 years on this, and the interesting thing is some of them don't lose IQ points at all. In fact, 25% of them don't lose IQ points as they get older, or any other cognitive function. And so the key question is, how do you become one of those? And it's not that hard, and that's what we're going to go through today. So the curve on aging and performance in any category isn't the dark red line here. It's this family of curves. When before your age 35, it's your genes. They take you where they want you to go. But after 35, it's your choices. And by age 50, 70% of how long and well you live are your choices. And by age 65, it's almost 80%. So whether you're at the top here or at the bottom here, way over here, is largely your choice. And let me show you some of that data. By the way, when we write books, Christine, you in the back, when we write books, we put cartoons in them. You know why? I always pick on someone in the back row. What? It's so guys will read it, that's right. So we have cartoons in all the large books, basically so that guys we can get guys reading them. But if you look at quality of life and aging again, this is what great illness care does. This is what the hospitals of the world really have done. That is, they return you to that curve, but they don't take you up to another curve. That's what we can do. And that's what we're going to show you some of what we've done. By the way, our cartoonist, we got him when he used to do cartoons on the editorial page of the New York Times, which we found one he did on medicine, so we liked him and we hired him. And immediately he left the New York Times and he now does cartoons for Mad Magazine. He's the chief cartoonist for Mad Magazine, actually. And he always slips double entendres in, and Mehmet, Dr. Oz, and I have to keep them out of the books. But anyway, this is what he sneaks them in on the last editions, right? And we go between the, what you call the pencil drawing and the ink one. He'll put an extra word or phrase in there that'll get us in trouble. But anyway, this is what prevention does. This is, again, great illness care. But this is where we can be. We can live at the top of our curve till very near the end and then do a swan dive and die. And that's what most of us, at least that's what I want to do too. And it's really possible.
Today, we're tackling meat. Rocco's a meat-loving cowboy, and I'm about to ask him to give up meat and animal products for 28 days.
I'm 53 years old, and actually wondering how long I'm going to make it.
The best way for us to do this is take it to the truth tube. Your blood sugar was 172. You're not borderline anything. You're just a diabetic. Your waist size, 49 inches. And your weight, 265 pounds. When I saw these figures, I was very alarmed. And when I'm scared, the patient needs to be scared too. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
That's plaque inside your arteries. You are in the 97th percentile, which means almost no one has more plaque than you. In fact, you have the heart of an 85-year-old.
Is it reversible?
Yes.
Good.
We need to get serious about this. When I found out Rocco's health was so critical, I knew I had to send in the one man who would get him on the right track. He's a brilliant doctor, an exceptional motivator, and my best friend. Take a look.
I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, and here at the Dr. Oz Show, I'm known as the Enforcer.
Hello, Rocco.
Rocco, this is young Dr. Mike. Of all the people I've talked to, the one that concerns me most is our meat-loving cowboy, Rocco. So I'm going to Arizona myself to see how he's doing.
Dr. Mike.
How are you?
How are you?
Good. You look good, man.
Oh my God.
Oh, look at this. It's pretty good.
I got a lot of peaches and apples, cucumbers, leafy green vegetables.
It's great.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the freezer.
You know, there's no meat in here. I don't see any. Are you keeping up with your steps?
Yes, right now it was 10,000 the first month, and now I'm going to start doing 12,000. Keep my pedometer with me. 4,500, and it's only 20 after 12. But yeah, everything feels different. And it's taken a huge weight off me personally. I didn't realize what effect mentally looking like that was doing to me. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Can you come out next month? Because I'm afraid if I lose you, I'm going to mess up.
You won me for life.
Okay,
You know, you
good.
got my email for life.
All right. So, it's been 28 days. I gotta say, everywhere I go, people stop me and they ask me about Rocco. I can't wait any longer. I'm gonna see what he looks like. Rocco, come on. I gotta say, Rocco, it's impressive. When you left here, I really was very, very concerned. As you went back to the airport and took that long flight back home, what was going through your mind?
That was brutal. I went crazy in the airport because as soon as I left, the pressure was off. I did the TV show. I got 28 days. The first test, I passed by one fast food restaurant. I passed by fettuccine Alfredo. I passed by bacon and smells. And I decided right there and there, I was only a half hour away from here. And I said, am I going to Am I going to live or am I going to die? Am I going to spend time with my grandchildren? Am I not? And I got a bag of nuts and a container of juice. And that was the first time in my life I did that.
I'm proud of you. It's the first step. What was it about Dr. Roizen, the enforcer, that sort of got you over there? I'm asking this question not just for you, because I know there are going to be as many people as before that show going to call me now and say, I want to do what Rocco's doing. What clicked for you?
The knowledge that he had and the way he came across. I have never had a grown man push me around a little bit. And I push people around a little bit. But in other words, it wasn't that he was doing it because I was a subject or I was a patient. He did it for me because he knows a way of life that I needed. And that's the way he sold it to me. And it was through his care and his love and his consistency. And again, it wasn't anything I couldn't do myself. Sure. But the fact that there were other people in it with me, I have an eating disorder. You know, there's no fat guys, nobody's out to save fat guys. But I have an eating disorder, it's a problem. I learned it, it's taken years to create it, and I have to stay away from the things that created it. No different than drinking, no different than if I were addicted to drugs or I had an addiction to some behavior. I have to change the behavior.
You want to see if it worked, everybody?
Yeah.
Rocky, you want to know?
No, I'm going that way.
So come on up. Dr. Roizen wants to check your waist size. You've been there before.
Yeah.
So you know the truth to rules. All right, Mike, check his waist size.
Hold it right there.
Good.
Now, Rocco, we want you to suck in.
You get the camera here, guys.
Because you're going to
this.
anyway.
And anybody saying it's not real.
43.
When you came on the first time, I was crystal clear on the fact that I didn't care about your weight as much as I cared about what was happening inside of you.
That's correct.
Right, so the first number we talked about was your glucose, your blood sugar. Because diabetes is a big deal to me. It's like pieces of glass shards scraping at your insides. You don't want that happening and not knowing about it. So you were a diabetic. Let's see what your number is now. Your glucose on the test speed is 199.
So in 28 days, actually 30 days, Rocco got rid of his type 2 diabetes. He didn't get rid of the genes for them. 2/3 of us in North America have the genes for type 2 diabetes. But he got rid of the clinical expression of that. And in 2 months, he didn't need any medicines at all for his high blood pressure or for his osteoarthritis. In fact, when we studied him 11 months later, it's now 24 months, but when we studied him 11 months after this, he had pulled about 40% of the plaque out of his coronary arteries, and he's continued to do well. What do you think that did to his medical costs, or the medical costs to the system? It reduced them 90%. If he'd been any place else, literally any place else but going for the TV studio and trying to reverse it by lifestyle change, he would have had coronary, he had ratty enough disease, he would have ended up with coronary artery bypass surgery. But he didn't need that because he changed his lifestyle. Is he unique? No, anyone can do that. And I'm going to show you some of the data on that. What we did with him is we coach him. It's the same thing you can do with a buddy. And I'm glad they're mainly women here because women are the buddies of the world. Guys, as I'll show you later on, make lousy buddies. But basically what you want is someone who gives you tough love, that is who'll listen, but then gives you tough love with a little expertise. And so he started an email with us, literally after the show. All we did was coach him via email. He would send an email, we'd send it back, and then we do it day after day until he got better. It's the same thing as you do with a buddy when you talk to them on the phone. But instead of talking about hair or something else, you talk to them about things important in their health. What we really learned from Oprah is that we can change anyone for 2 to 3 days, right? Every time you see someone, you saw someone on the Oprah show or saw a diet, you'd be willing to try it for 2 or 3 days. The world did. I mean, that's how we were able to sell so many books. But whether you sustain it or not is not that aha moment. That aha moment is the emotion you get that causes you to change. But you keep change by the environment and culture. That is, if you bring chocolate chip cookies into the home, you will have chocolate chip cookies. They are too strong for us to resist. Chip Ahoys are too good. We will eat them. We start with just a nibble, right? And one, no problem. But then that bag looks longing over there. And before long, that whole bag gets consumed. The only way you can beat what we call the lifestyle diseases is to, in fact, change the environment and culture. It's to control the controllable. How did I get in this? I got in this because I was forced to take a course in medical school on healthcare financing. I was a senior in medical school in 1970, and we spent 7.2% of gross domestic product. One out of every $14 in America was spent on healthcare. That was up from 5.2% in 1960. And the profit that time, the teacher said, if we keep going like we are, we'll be at 12% in the year 2000, and we'll lose our manufacturing base. We said, why will we lose our manufacturing base? And he said, well, when the differential with other countries gets to be 8%, you lose manufacturing. And he said, we're at 8% differential now with Mexico. We didn't know if China, Japan, or India in that era. Well, what happened? We beat the 12% in America. We hit 12% in 1990, and we lost our manufacturing base. But we're in much worse shape now because, I'll come back to the because in a second, but why do we spend twice as much as Europe, or twice as much as, in fact, Canada, or 4 times as much as Mexico, India, and Japan? It's because we have twice the chronic disease of Europe or Canada, 4 times the chronic disease of Mexico, India, China, and Japan. We have 80% more high blood pressure in America than developed Europe, 110% more heart disease, 40% more type 2 diabetes, and 800% more stroke. The reason America is more expensive isn't that our procedures are more expensive, it's that we do many more of the procedures. But we aren't alone. We are not the only country getting obese. Every country is. We're just so far out in advance of it that we become job non-competitive compared to the other countries. Even if you look at hard things, between age 55 and 65, cancer, 5.4% in developed Europe, 12.2% in America. Arthritis, osteoarthritis, 21.3% in developed Europe, 53.8%. Why do we have twice as much disease or 4 times as much as Mexico? Well, before we get to why we do, let's look at the consequence. The consequence is in America, we spent 17.6% of gross domestic product in 2009 on healthcare. 1 out of every $5.50. And the prediction is we'll spend 20 to 28%. Why? Because chronic disease is getting worse because we have a built-in problem with obesity. And it causes chronic disease. This can't happen. Why can't this happen in America, in the United States? Because at 20% differential, you lose your service industry jobs, your legal jobs, your education jobs. We won't have any jobs. So it can't happen. What has to happen before that? What has to happen before you get to 55% of your budgets being medical care is we get to rationing. Because we can't have it. Rationing meaning only you get the hip replacement, she can't. So this can't happen because we'll have rationing before that. Why do I say chronic disease is the bugaboo? Well, it is because chronic disease caused by something I'm going to show you, causes 81% of our hospital admissions in the United States, 91% of all prescriptions, 76% of physician visits, at an average cost to everyone in America, because we share it. If you smoke, I share the cost with everybody else here. You aren't smoking by yourself, you're smoking with everyone else who's sharing your costs. And so that's why the problem exists, is that chronic disease causes us to be non-competitive for jobs with all the other countries we're competing with. The good news is 4 factors cause 75% of our chronic disease: tobacco, food choices and portion size, physical inactivity, and stress. Why is that good news? Because you get a do-over on every one of those. Every one of those is under your control, or my control. So that whether we survive as a country in the United States, whether you survive as a country as well, is solely dependent on your health choices. You get to do it or not do it. If you look at it from another point of view, this is the Congressional Budget Office taking that cost data all the way out to 2082. If you look at that blue line, that's all non-health things in the United States budget. They go down. Only one problem we have in the United States from an economic standpoint, and that's health. We control our health budget. Same thing in Canada. If you control your health budget, you got no problem with taxes. You got no problem with anything else either, just like we don't, because everything else is declining as a percent of GDP. So the health choices we make will determine if we will compete for jobs. But just like Rocco, we're at a turning point. Rocco had 98% lesions in his coronaries. He was ready to die. But he got that aha moment that he had the heart of an 85-year-old and wouldn't get to see his grandchildren. And so he said, I've got to change. And that's really what motivated him. He got the aha moment, and then we got to change his environment with him. You look at type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome, the United States isn't any worse off. Canada isn't any worse off than any place else. It's 35% in the United States, up from 10%. Where can it go? It can go to 67%. Because after that, we run out of the gene pool of people with type 2 diabetes. In the Emiratis, over in Abu Dhabi, it's already at 65 to 70%. They got it much worse than we do, if you will, because they've got worse genes. And Chinese and Indians, the same problem. Here it is again. This is a guy, and Davey can explain this better than I can, but this is, the white is where blood flows in the coronary artery, and this is a 1996 coronary angiogram, just one picture, and he, as you notice, way down here, here it is, this is what we call ratty coronary artery disease. He's got lesions, and if you look at the volume of blood flow in those are 98% lesions. He's got a 97% lesions. He's got a restriction of blood flow. And he went to Johns Hopkins, and he said, and they turned him down for coronary artery bypass surgery. Why'd they turn him down? Because he had those type of lesions in the rest of his coronary arteries. There was no place to put a bypass in. When you put a bypass in, you need a healthy artery to bypass to. He didn't have any. So he came to the Cleveland Clinic, because by that time we were, I think, ranked #1 for 5 years in a row. And he said, I want coronary artery bypass. And we said, no, because you got disease that coronary artery bypass won't help. And he said to his doctor, Dr. Esselstyn at the time, he said, what am I to do, just die? I can't even walk 5 steps from here to the wall without chest pain. He said, you're going to leave me to die? And as he said to him, no. You change your diet, you walk 10,000 steps a day, you meditate morning to night, and he said, and if you smoke, he didn't, but if you smoke, give up tobacco, you can reverse this. And he said, I can't walk 5 steps. How am I going to walk 10,000? And as he said, walk 2 steps 5,000 times. And he did. And this is his coronary angiogram 2.5 years later. No surgery, no anything. No stents. He didn't even have statins because they weren't popular in that era, 96. Can anyone pull, this is what Rocco's looks like too. Can anyone do this? 98% of us can. 2% of us have genes that don't allow reversal, that don't allow you to. But heart disease is something we shouldn't have in North America. We don't have bad genes for the heart, for vascular disease. We cause it. All genes do is make proteins or watch other genes. Genes are like protein factories. You put in some raw material and they turn out a protein. Whether your genes are on, and this is really what we've learned in the last 10 years, whether specific genes are on, Christine, pay attention to this, will you? Don't want you falling asleep. Whether your genes are on or not are your choices. If I could show one slide that's really important, it's this one. This is 52 guys with prostate cancer. I could show 480 women, the strips of genes of 480 women with breast cancer. They're the exact same thing. But this is 52 guys with prostate cancer, and this is their genes up to here. So there are 52 strips here, and they're the same 52 guys here a year later. What happened? Well, if you look here, their genes are red or turned on. What are these 5 genes that are turned on before the intervention? They're the RAS family of genes that cause the growth of prostate, breast, or colon cancer. And here they are over here. These 5 genes are turned off. What do they do? You know it already. It's the same thing they do for heart disease. That's the great thing. We don't have to change in preventing cancer from what we do to prevent heart disease. It's they walk 10,000 steps a day, they meditated 15 minutes morning and night, and they eliminated 5 foods from their diet. And by the way, what are these genes up here that are green and off that they turned on? These 2 are the GSTM1 protein creating genes. The GSTM1 protein causes breast, colon, and prostate cancer cells to commit suicide. So they turned off the genes that promote the growth of cancer, and they turned on the genes that promote the cancer causing itself to die. Here it is. This is there aren't many guys here, so I'm not scaring many people. This is a groin shot. This is a shot right here. Remember they say prostate gland is like a walnut, so this is the walnut-sized prostate gland. And that's the tumor. There it is a year later. In fact, the study is 5.5 to 6 years old now, and only 1 of the 52 has progressed besides lifestyle change in treatment. And only 9 of the 480 women. You can do this. This is not that hard to change what you eat, whether you walk 10,000 steps a day, whether you meditate 15 minutes morning and night and avoid tobacco. So what are the 5 foods? It's saturated fat. That's 4-legged animal fat. No, you didn't get a chance to eat any of the bad foods in a quantity that makes your genes abnormal today, out beforehand. Saturated fat, that's 4-legged animal fat, 2-legged animal skin, palm and coconut oil. There's an ad going around about how coconut oil is different than the rest of saturated fats. That's BS. Bad science. It changes the gene function the same way. Second one is trans fat. You've already banned that in Canada. We're just a little behind you. Sugars, simple sugars. Christine, do you like ice cream? No, you don't like ice cream? You're not going to play this game. I'm in trouble. Does one of your friends like ice cream? They all do. You like ice cream? Who said yes? How long does the joy of the ice cream cone last after you have it? You feel guilt after that? Well, but how long? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Well, the problem is the sugar in the ice cream cone changes your proteins for the life of the proteins. So hemoglobin A1C is a protein we measure for diabetes, type 2 diabetes, if you will, care. And what is it? It's just hemoglobin with a glucose at the A1C position. The extra sugar in the ice cream cone gets on that and stays on that protein and makes it dysfunctional. That hemoglobin doesn't release oxygen as well for 180 days. So the joy lasts 5 minutes, and the hardship from it lasts 180 days. And by the way, the saturated fat turns on genes that cause inflammation or promote cancer for between 5 and 23 days, which is why you want to avoid it. Because if the pleasure lasted 180 days and the pain lasted 5 minutes, then it'd be fine, right? But it's not that way. Simple carbohydrates, why do you want to avoid them? Because they turn into sugar fast in your body. And syrup, corn syrup, etc., any syrup. And the problem is food is not let's make a deal. You can't say, I'm going to exercise it off tomorrow. Yeah, you'll get thin and you'll exercise the calories off, but the sugar, once it gets on the protein, stays there. And the saturated fat, once it turns on the genes, it's like a factory. You've turned it on and it takes a while for it to stop. Here's how atherosclerosis starts. This is the inside of a blood vessel, and these cells are endothelial cells. They're the smooth one-cell lining that you have inside your artery. And they're stuck together. What's the, if you will, the cement or the stuff that keeps them stuck together? It's a protein, phosphokinase 3. What happens when you get sugar on that protein? It weakens that grout, so you can have tears between the cells. But what do you do if you have a tear inside your blood vessel? You don't allow it to exist. You immediately plaster it over. What's the human grout that you plaster it over with, or the repair stuff? It's LDL, or lousy cholesterol. So the reason atherosclerosis is so much more common in diabetics with hypertension is the diabetic component, the sugar, puts on that lousy grout, and then blood pressure comes down, pounds on it, and separates those cells. And then you repair that rent or tear immediately, and you repair it more and more. So what happens? Here it is. You've got the grout, and over the years, you've been turned on those inflammatory genes with saturated fat, and there it is. It gets inflamed, bing, 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 and all of a sudden, bango, it ruptures. And then you attract, the rupture attracts a lattice network of platelets and clotting factors, and together they stop these red things called red cells, and that's a heart attack, or stroke, or memory loss, or impotence, or decay in orgasm quality, or wrinkle of your skin. Is a wrinkle on your skin any different than a heart attack? No, it's the same thing, just a different blood vessel. Is impotence any different than a heart attack? No, it's just the same thing, it's just a different blood vessel. How fast does it occur? We made this 34 seconds. Because that's how fast it happens in your body. Some of you may remember Tim Russert. Anyone remember Tim Russert from Meet the Press? Raise your hand. Well, a few of you are old enough to remember. Tim Russert died in 34 seconds. Yeah, they worked on him for 2.5 hours, but he was dead in 34 seconds. Why? Because he ruptured a plaque. He ruptured it in the vulnerable artery I showed you before. Mehmet and I had the best place, if you're a guy, the best place to speak is the First Ladies Conference in California. 14,000 women, 4 guys. It was the governor, myself, Mehmet, and Tim Russert were the invited male speakers. All the others were females for the 3 days. We were there for 3 days. So we decided we'd have lunch together. First day, I had vegetarian, Mehmet had vegetarian, the governor I think had salmon, Tim Russert had hamburger and french fries. Tim Russert's belly is hanging out like this, and he clearly has coronary artery disease. So I said to Mehmet, someone's got to smack him down. And Mehmet said, he's not your patient, you can't touch him. Next day, he has steak and french fries. The rest of us did the same. The third day, same thing. When you looked at the healthcare log, the fitness center logs, Mehmet, I, and the governor had gone in every morning. Tim Russert hadn't passed through the doors at all. So third day at lunch, I said to Mehmet, someone's got to smack him down. And Mehmet said, he's not your patient, you can't touch him. He said, someone's got to talk to him. He said, he's not your patient. 6 months later, he died. So I vowed I'd never let that happen again. The next week, I was up at Canada AM, which is my favorite, literally my favorite show of all. I'm up at Canada AM in the green room, and there's a guy about my age who has a pot belly and has clearly got coronary artery disease, at least in my mind, and I see him reaching for a donut. And so I said, moment of truth. I grabbed his arm, with one hand, grabbed the donut with the other, threw it down, and stepped on it. And the producer at Canada AM looked like, I can't believe you're doing this. And he said, calmly said to me, do I know you? And I said, no, but you're clearly an American by the way you talk. So you'll find the Cleveland Clinic because you'll want to go to the best in cardiac care, and I will get to know you. And he said, I've got 13 stents, I'm protected, right? That's our problem. I can tell you that was, whatever it was, 4 years ago or so. I did intervene with that guy, if you will, and he went on the same thing Rocco went on, and the same thing the other guy's gone on, and he lost 40 pounds, and instead of lip syncing his songs, he now sings them by himself, and he's pretty vigorous on stage, where he couldn't move more than 2 feet before because he had chest pain. He lets me tell you his name, he's Frankie Valli. So for any of you guys who are old enough to know who Jersey Boys are, he's the original Jersey Boy. Those are the things you got to avoid. Is it tough to do that? It's tough in today's society, but it isn't tough if you cook your own food. Can you make food as delicious as current food without using those? Absolutely. We do it daily. And the problem is, we fed those bad foods and those habits to our kids enough that when you look at Americans, this is U.S. soldiers and U.S. kids who've died between the ages of 9 and 12, 90% of them have coronary artery disease now. 90% of 9 to 12-year-olds have coronary artery disease, up from 10% in 1960. We're killing our kids. And that's why we're at a turning point. And that's why the Cleveland Clinic said, it's got to do something about this. And it's easy to do something about it. Remember, there are only 4 factors that determine 75% of our illness, 75% of our health costs. And they're totally under our control. That's why the Cleveland Clinic said, we're one of those health centers, like every other academic health center, that has patient care, research, and education as its 3 legs of a 3-legged stool. And 4 years ago, or 6 years ago it is now actually, we changed that to be a pillar system, and the 4th pillar had to be wellness. Because we said if we're going to do something to continue to lead in healthcare, we cannot just lead in great illness care, we've got to lead in stopping the burden of illness. So we took a new approach, not judged by what we call intermediate variables. What do I mean by that? We started doing what you're trying to do with Epicor, and I got my start in preoperative clinic. We found that if we took all the total hip patients who were waiting 30 days before surgery, and got them to do this, that 20% of them didn't need hip surgery. 20% of them scheduled for hip surgery didn't need it because they, by diet and exercise, eliminated their pain. But we said, let's do this for our employees as a whole. The Cleveland Clinic's a pretty big place. For those of you who haven't seen it, we have, in fact, for our total population is 41,000 employees and 81,000 dependents. So we said, let's study it in that group and say, can we reduce our healthcare costs, drive those down so that we can offer less expensive healthcare and make our companies more competitive, and then teach it to the companies that are in our area so they can drive their costs down and be more job competitive. And we said, let's focus on the 4 big ones: tobacco, food choices, physical activity, and work stress or employee satisfaction. So the first thing we did was tobacco. It was pretty easy. Everyone knows it's a toxin. And if you're a smoker, you live 8 to 13 years less. This is how we do the data. So we have to have at least 4 studies in humans for Mehmet and I to do the data any place in Real Age or on the Dr. Oz show, etc. 4 studies in humans that show either a disability or a outcome change. So this is from non-smoker to smoker. You die 8 to 12 years earlier. No big deal. If that was all that happened with tobacco, it wouldn't be a big deal. Because they just die, no cost to the rest of us. But there's 18 years of disability that pollutes every one of us and makes us non-competitive for jobs. Forget the money, it's what it does to us as a society. It makes us poorer. And the great news is that if you stop smoking before age 35 and before you've had 20 pack years, a pack a year for 20 years, your curve of mortality and disability is no different than if you never smoked. You get a do-over even from smoking. And no one objected to us saying it's legal in the United States. You can get people to quit smoking. You can say, I'm not going to allow you to smoke on my property. And it looked like we were doing things with the trend. Smoking rates were coming down in the United States. Unfortunately, we have a blip. The blip is that in 2007 was the predicted year, actually it was predicted in the study by McMaster, to start up in the United States. Why? Because all the money in tobacco prevention funds has been taken by the politicians for other purposes in the United States, 99.7% of it. So it was predicted in 1998 that 2007 would be the lowest year, and it was. But we started banning smoking and enforcing it, and the police force started to report to the Wellness Institute. You'd say, why is the police force reporting to the Wellness Institute? Well, there were 2 reasons. We wanted them to actually be able to chase someone. You know, it's a novel concept that they be in shape. And the second reason was we wanted them to be able to give warning and even more to visitors, patients, and employees who smoke. So if you smoke on our campus, guess what our campus includes? It's our parking lots. Right? You smoke in a parking lot, you're smoking on our campus, you get a pink slip. Second pink slip, you're fired. No ifs, ands, and buts. We fired 2 high-profile surgeons. Everyone knew we were serious. Right? We didn't pick on nurses or porters or anybody else. We picked on the surgeons who refused to quit, and we publicized it. That got people to be serious about this. And then we stopped hiring smokers. If Canada would say in all its provinces and its federal government, we as a federal government are not hiring smokers for anything we give money to in Canada, you would wipe out smoking. We would too. We haven't gotten quite that far. But we can do it at the clinic. And by the way, why were we the first major healthcare system to do it in the United States? Because everyone knows that transporters and nurses have a high rate of smoking. And we were afraid, because they were both the 2 categories of people we had toughest job hiring because they're in short supply in the United States. But it turned out we got 17 more applicants because of the policy than we did, 17 times more applicants because of the policy than people who said they weren't applying because of the policy. What happened? We drove smoking down in the entire county. This is what I call the Cosgrove effect. He's our CEO. We drove it down from 26.5%, we were the highest county in Ohio, second highest in Ohio, to the lowest, 15%. It's one guy can drive that down by this policy of saying, we're not hiring smokers, and it gets publicized. The United States did hit its low in 2007 and started back up. Ohio is about a little lower because we're dragging it down. Next thing we went was to patient food. We said that a patient after heart surgery shouldn't get Kentucky Fried Chicken plus biscuits and gravy. And that literally was one of the things they got. So we took away 99% of our patient food now is GO compliant. You can't find anything that isn't 100% whole grain in a grain. You can't find saturated fat, you can't find trans fat, you can't find added sugars or added syrups, and yes, it met the taste test. It's just as good as before. Now you say that's not hard in a hospital because hospital food ain't real good. But in fact, we had to go through taste tests. We changed all the vending machines. About 70% of our food for our employees and visitors is now what we call GO compliant. And we started labeling food for grocery stores because you shouldn't need a magnifying glass when you go in a grocery store to find out what's healthy. Now this is not a political trend. This is obesity trends in the United States. And this is a color graph. And you'll notice in 1990, no state had more than 14% obesity. And as a country, 6.9% of the United States in 1990 was obese. Just watch the color change. Now, no state is less than 15%, and only one state is less than 20%. We quadrupled obesity rates in the United States from 6.9% to 28.9%, more than quadrupled in 18 years. We can tell when obesity started. Obesity in the United States started in 1984. That's when it became culturally acceptable to eat anytime, anywhere, any place, anything. How do we know that? Because we started eating more calories every day in 1984 per person than we'd eaten for the 100 years prior to that. It was only 2% more. That's 40 calories in 1984. Unfortunately, it was compounded. It was 80 calories in 1985. It's now 860 calories more per person is consumed, not prepared, is consumed. 860 calories than were consumed from 1858 to 1983. And the problem with obesity isn't obesity. Who cares what people look like? The problem is that type 2 diabetes follows in 17 years, heart disease in 25 years, and cancer in 35 years if you avoid the first two. Here's the obesity map of the United States. Who gets obese first? It's our South. Who gets type 2 diabetes? It's our South. By the way, what happens if you don't study this? If you don't know this? You make bad economic decisions. The head of Boeing put a plant in South Carolina instead of keeping one in Washington. Guess what that means? He's got to pay those employees 17% less just to have the same economic costs for employees. But we can turn the whole thing around. How do we do it? You change the environment, you change the culture. So we put GO labels on foods that were healthy, not only in our cafeterias, but in all the stores in town that would let us. We changed anything in the vending machines to make it only healthy. We labeled food with the calories. We took the fryers out. can you eat French fries that are every bit as good as McDonald's fries, that are baked and that have 90% less fat and calories? Absolutely. We had to do a taste test with 16 different French fries, but we don't have any fryers anymore. We took 43 fryers out. We have 43 fryers for sale if anyone wants to buy them. And can you do it? Absolutely you can do it. Anyone can do it. We took out all the sugared soft drinks too. Is it easy to do? Actually, we got more objection to this than anything else we did. We had some people who were crazy enough to, we had a number of people who were crazy enough to really get mad about taking sugared soft drinks out. And we label food. You shouldn't eat a magnifying glass, as I said. Out of the peanut butters we sell in America, this store sells, 2 out of the 16 are healthy. You shouldn't have to look at the label to find out which 2 are absolutely healthy for you. So we put the liner on here, and it's right on. When you go and see what the cost is, you also see whether it's healthy or not in those supermarkets. We gave free Curves membership, free Weight Watchers, free fitness center membership, free yoga classes. Our use of the fitness centers by our cardiac surgeons went up 5-fold when we made them free. You'd say, are those guys so cheap as they won't pay $18 a month? And it was, that isn't it. What it was the culture change, and they knew they were expected to be healthy. And it changed everybody's behavior. And that's really the key. You change the culture. Weight management, as I said, we gave all these things free, and our employees lost 253,000 pounds that we can verify. If you just look at that in dollar terms, that saves us $5 million a year in health costs. And that's at the low end. At the high end, it saves you $15 million. Stress, I wasn't even allowed to mention stress when I was asked to take over this job. Toby said, I'm a cardiac surgeon, I give stress. I don't want anyone criticizing. He was the CEO. He said, I don't want anyone criticizing me. I knew that was true, too. I took him into an ICU, and he started yelling at the nurses, and I had to take him right out. He said, if we have a nurse who has to take care of more patients because we've got more patients, she's got to just buck up. And it was, he actually got a very strong learning example when a nurse told him, I know you're a great surgeon, but if I need heart surgery, I'm going to the Mayo Clinic where they'll treat me nice. I don't want to be where you are. And he totally changed. He considers himself a recovering cardiac surgeon now. And he first allowed us, the first change was to allow yoga. And now we do a lot of stress management online and group programs, and it's really made a major difference in people's enjoyment of work. And stress is as great as diabetes or obesity or smoking as a risk factor for heart disease. So we couldn't even, when we started, we could only get 5 people in our own call center to participate in a study. Why? Because the boss wouldn't give them the hour off a week to even do a stress management program. So we had to do it with GE, and GE did it with us. And you notice the stress at baseline is the same at the GE call center in Kansas City as it was at our call center, which is 22.5. And for those of you who know the perceived stress scale, that's like saying, telling you your mom has cancer, are you stressed? You're darn right you are when your mom has cancer when you're first told that. That's how high a level they had. And they reduced it with the program by 50%. What's the program involved? It's going online and doing a 1-hour session with 10 or 8 or 12 of your buddies. So, and by the way, this is a finance call center, so we actually had productivity. Another measure of outcome, if you will. So they collected 13% more money when they were unstressed too. And they showed up, the absentee rate went down 8%. So GE now said, let's study it again. And we studied it in a bigger center. And this is with the group together with a timekeeper. No one trained, just someone saying, you're here for an hour once a week and going over the program. and this is with a trained person, no difference. So they again reduced it by 50% the stress level, emotional well-being went up, their exhaustion went down, and their collection rates went up as well. So GE has now done this throughout their, is now putting the stress program in throughout their system as we are too. And by the way, when they got the stress program, they also lost, incidentally, 4 kilos or about 9 pounds over the 8 weeks of the program. We decided we should do something more for that, and we said, let's increase our cost of healthcare. We have co-pays. We said we're going to increase the cost to our employees 9%, but they can lock in last year's rates, which is no charge at all at the Cleveland Clinic, if they participate in a healthy choice program. The benchmark for employees in hospitals participating in a wellness program, I don't know where you are, Susan? Where are you, Susan? Over there? The benchmark, just so you know, in the United States is 12%. That's the average. The maximum Mercer, which is a consulting firm that consults for a lot of hospitals, found was 15%. Our own participation 7 years ago, before we started this whole thing, was 8%. We put this in and measured it again, and within 6 months, because it was a $900 difference in cost, you paid nothing or you paid $900, we got to 45%. We've now doubled that to $1,800 this year, and next year we're going to $2,400. And you can still lock in a zero cost if you participate in the program. So we expect it to get over 90% this year. Do we have a problem in general in Cleveland and in America? Yeah, our kids are fat. If you look at obesity in America in 2003 to 6, it was around 17% by 5th grade. In Cleveland, it's 42%. That doesn't reflect a difference from America. It means that America has gone from about 15% to 40% in 5 years. We're killing our kids. And it's with niceness, right? We buy them ice cream cones, we buy them extra fries, etc. We're killing them. But we get a do-over. You get a do-over. Everyone gets a do-over. We've done 52 environmental things to change the culture at the Cleveland Clinic, and every one of our sites, to get people to understand that we expect them to be healthy, that that's part of what they are. And it's part of how we in America can retake competitiveness. So, the employee health care costs, as I'll show you, have been stable for now 14 quarters. Actually, they're declining. Our employees have lost 253,000 pounds. The self-reported to doc cigarette usage, 97% of our employees use our electronic medical record for their care. That is, they use another Cleveland Clinic physician as their caregiver. And we're fairly big, as you can get. And it's pretty hard not to. In our area, we have 73% market share, which means it's pretty hard not to be in our system. But they go from 15.4 to 6.8% in cigarette usage. Type 2 diabetes, which is baked in by the prior gain of weight, is now increasing at about 1% a year, where it was increasing about 10% a year when we started this. The blood pressures are lower by 7/4. That's a huge change in cost, if you will. And the employee satisfaction, what Gallup calls engagement, has improved by 33%. People like this. I get stopped as I walk down the hall. I have to budget about 10 more minutes between meetings now because of the number of times I get stopped by employees to be thanked for the program. I didn't do it. It's they've made the change. Our employees are much healthier. It's now being exported to 6 multinationals, including Lafarge, which is both here and there. And I'm going to just show you one of their tapes, if I can, just to show you what happened with Lafarge. I realize I'm running late. I'm only going to take another 4 hours. Not working. What did I do wrong? Okay.
This one has to go on, or this one. See if that works. Somehow went down.
March 3 is our aha moment.
Okay, I do apologize.
The idea of the Lafarge 3 came out of our conversations with Dr. Roizen and his team at the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute. We wanted to create a culture of wellness at Lafarge, but we knew that it would require more than the traditional programs could offer, and that is when Dr. Roizen and I discussed how to bring the aha moment to Lafarge. The Lafarge 3 is our aha moment.
Don't worry, I'm skipping some of it from a time standpoint.
Fedudellum, and I've been with Lafarge for 30 years. One thing I think about myself is I probably work too much and don't take time for physical activity. I think my biggest health concerns right now is getting to a healthier lifestyle with better eating and more physical activity.
Now, you've been on the diet for, what, about a month?
A little over, yes.
A little over a month. How do you feel about this?
I feel the energy level is unbelievable. I mean,
So you got much more energy.
Much.
As we open this, let's look. So what I see first, what is clear is there's a lot of frozen veggies. I don't know if you can see this. We've got a crate of oranges in here.
There's more on the table too.
So let's go and see where you were. So your waist was 58. I measured it, I think Monday, and it was 43. You have lost a small person. Your weight went from 415 to 321. So that's, what, 96 pounds? Is that right? 94 pounds.
The energy level compared to what it was is just unbelievable. I mean, if I would have known 10 years ago how much better I feel now, I would have done it years ago. I mean, it's just that, I mean, words cannot put it into how actually different I do feel, and it's just amazing.
My name's Tim Wirtz. I've been with Lafarge for about 10 years, almost 10 years. We do an online assessment with Lafarge every year. There's several items on that assessment that I was in the red zone, the bad area. I'd like to see all those come back to have green lights right down the road. So.
I'm Mike Roizen.
Tim Wirtz.
Privilege. What do you think your major health problem is?
Mostly just being overweight.
And has that caused any problem you know of yet?
None that I know of.
You're at risk because someone gave you the genes for type 2 diabetes. 67% of Americans have it. You have it, fat brings it out, and you've got type 2 diabetes. So, Tim, you've been on the program for a little over a month now. And what have you noticed? Other than a more beautiful wife?
Other than that, a lot more energy for both of us, I think. I know definitely for me, it's a lot easier to get out of bed in the morning. I'm not dragging at the end of the day. That change came right off the bat in the first 2 weeks. It was obvious that I had a lot more energy to work with. Alongside of losing the weight and doing the diet and exercise, I also quit chewing tobacco after 22 years.
So let's go and look at the numbers today. So your waist was 48, and it's now 36. Your weight was 260, and we said you lost 50 pounds, so you're 210. Your hemoglobin A1C, that's our measure of diabetes. And if it's above 5.7, it's diabetic, and you were 6'4", and it's now 5'6". His C-reactive protein, which again reflects inflammation, was 4.5, very high. It's on the way down. It takes a while to get down, so you're on the way. We're going to get that under 1 before we quit. Your calendar age is 35, and your real age was about 10 years older, and now you're 31.1, so you're 4 years younger than your calendar age.
The difference is just night and day from before we started on this program. My wife Shanna has the same the same reaction as I have, just the energy level is ridiculous now.
It's really about health, wellness, and safety and engaging everybody to do something differently. So over the years,
The point we're making is that this is not unique to the Cleveland Clinic. It's not unique to any place. Everybody can do this. You can do this, and there's no reason to not do it. And there's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of reasons to do it. See if I get it. The key is there are three things that we do that you can do to sustain the change, that you can do in your own life just as well as in your, quote, corporate life, or to help you make your corporations more competitive. One is you change the environment. It's expected that people be healthy. It's expected that they do healthy behaviors. We use a lot of social media buddy system. As I said, we expect everyone to get a buddy, a health buddy, if you will. And as I said, women are much more effective as buddies than men. And the incentives are the other thing we've put in to really make it work. And you can do incentives with other things if you want. But it's the only way we can save our societies. It's the only way that I know of that we can stay competitive for jobs in the international culture that we have that allows free transport of ideas and jobs. This is what we did. If we kept on the track or kept on the average of the United States, we'd be spending about $55 million more in health costs for just our employees now than we are. More than pays for itself to do this. This is, as you see, this is 10 quarters in a row. It's actually the last 2 quarters gone down. I don't have a slide on that. I'm going to say we've done things with different companies. So in Google has a very different group of health costs, right? You can tailor it to the company. Google has employees who are 33 and a half. Their major health cost is prenatal care. It's prematurity of birth. You can give them, you can teach them how to do things that are, again, make a difference in health. And again, I want to make it, why is it easy to do it? Because we've now got the outcome data. We've got outcome data in one study, only one, that you can decrease autism by 40% if you just give the woman prenatal vitamins for 3 months before she gets pregnant. Amazing data, but we've not got enough of it. That's why we need places like you're building here that look at outcome research. And we're saying the same thing, if you will, for loss of eyesight after 55. What's the major cause? It's macular degeneration. And we know that DHA and, in fact, lutein are two of the major things. If you will, one of the other things that happened is when we test our vitamin D levels in our employees, 85 to 90% of them were deficient in D. I kept doing tests. Finally, I got yelled at by the controller of the health plan system. He said, stop testing them. It's much more expensive to test them than just give them the vitamin D. Where would it go? If 65 to 70% of Americans did this, we would save $600 to $825 billion a year. We would eliminate our budget deficit. We would eliminate our non-competitiveness for jobs. And that's true in Canada too. Bending the curve is not instant though. You've got to have some patience. Politicians don't have much patience because they've got a short election cycle. So bending the curve in the United States would start in 2 years, the curve would flatten in 5 years, and you could bend it down in 7, exactly as I said. And you'd save $3 trillion in the first 10 years and $8 trillion, if you will, or $800 billion a year. Amazing numbers, right? That's what it takes, actually. That's all that it takes to make us competitive for jobs. I'm an academic, so I disclose my conflicts. I did write these books. I do earn royalties on them, so I hope you buy them. I did start Real Age. We sold it to Hearst about 3 years ago, but they still have our stuff on it. And it's a worldwide problem. Many of you know of Veja. It's the national magazine of Brazil. And if you look at it, and she's obviously concerned with aging, 30, 40, 50, 60, etc. I've been on the cover of this magazine 5 times. If you're a guy, you can't find me, I'm up there. Didn't see me, did you? Probably even Christine didn't see me. Where have we been? Health choices will determine whether we can compete for jobs. It's reversible for us, it's reversible for society. The good news, 4 factors determine 75% of our costs. Our entire deficit is determined by our lifestyle choices. And it is driven, our choices are driven by data. That is, the choices we can make in culture. We don't make individual choices based on data, but the system can make choices based on data. Emotion and environment are what determine our choices, but it is data that determines the environment we live with. Okay, now I'm going to go over 12 things each of you can do individually. 1, know you control what goes in your body, and yes, it is that important. 2, each of you gets a do-over. Everyone in this room can get a do-over. If you walked into this room, you can get a do-over. 3, there are a whole bunch of simple things you can do. How many of you have vaccines up to date? Well, in fact, many people don't get the shingles vaccine, etc. But vaccine up to date, which maybe gets better in Canada than it does in the United States, is something many of us don't do. Avoid known toxins. You've already eliminated BPA in bottles. You know where you get more BPA than bottles by a factor of 1,000? It's not actually cans either. It's receipts. You get all those thermal receipts you get at gas stations, fast food places, grocery stores, those are printed on BPA paper. We did a study on that. We watched moms at McDonald's and at Kentucky Fried Chicken. They get the receipt. We should have done it at Tim Hortons. They get the receipt, they crumble it up and put it in the pocket or in their purse, right? What's on their hand? 1,000 times more BPA than in one bottle. They then peel back the bun on the food for their child, right? They don't wash their hands in between. We don't have bathrooms situated there. They wash, what have they now done? They've transferred that BPA to the bun. The kid eats the bun and gets the overload of BPA. Don't pick up the receipt, okay? 65% of receipts that you get are thermally printed and are BPA loaded. And I think you've banned PERC. Is that right? You've banned PERC from dry cleaning? PERC is a carcinogen that was used in 100% of dry cleaning in North America up to 5 years ago. I think Canada has banned it beginning in 2013. The United States isn't that smart. Walk 10,000 steps a day. This is not walking your dog. I had a pedometer on today. I never go anyplace without a pedometer. I thought I had a second one in my luggage, so I gave one to the TV reporter that interviewed me, Jennifer whatever, or Jan, or whatever her name is. So she's got my pedometer, but I was at 6,300 steps, and I'm sure I'll get 10,000 today, and I won't miss tomorrow either. But this is really Jillian. This is a lady who we started working with back in 2005. She went from a size, she was a model, she went from a size 2 to a size 16 plus plus, she says. She was really size 20 in a 6-year period after she got married because she refused to get out of her SUV. She literally did everything in her SUV. We watched her. She walked her dog in her SUV. She took her garbage cans down the driveway in her SUV. She got her dry cleaning in her SUV. She got her food in her SUV. I mean, it was unbelievable. So we just got her out of the SUV. We literally took away her SUV, and she went back to a size 2. Got rid of her diabetes, got rid of her. What I'm saying isn't tough. It just requires us to say, we're going to change the environment. Call a buddy. I told you it should be a female buddy. This is a typical male buddy. This guy is finishing his 10,000 steps with a little jog, and he sees his buddy. So I'm not even going to say that this guy who's the buddy, I'm not going to comment on eating candy bar. But a guy buddy sees something. He doesn't say one word, not one question asked. He goes immediately over to help his buddy, and he does. That is a male buddy. This, on the other hand, is a female buddy. She encourages you to walk a little faster. And when you need to be picked up, she comes along and picks you up. And that's really true. A female buddy, if you call her or email her at 6 p.m. every day and say, I did my 10,000 steps yesterday, and you haven't done it by 6:15, she'll call you and say, can I come over and take a walk? I need a walk. So the female buddy will take ownership of the problem with you. And that's why everyone should have a buddy. Guys should have a female buddy. Women should have a female buddy. You do the other two components of physical activity, and do them in this order. The next one you do after general physical activity should be weightlifting or resistance exercise. What happens, most of the people go to a treadmill or go to an elliptical machine or go to a bike or something. That's how you get injured. You need to build up the muscles before you go on that. So you want to do 30 minutes of weightlifting. It doesn't take any more than 30 minutes a week of resistance exercise. And then do the cardio. Can you get in better shape if you want to run a marathon than doing cardio 21 minutes 3 times a week? Sure, but you're not in better health. You will be more fit and destroy your body. That is, no way, and Governor Schwarzenegger said it best, he didn't know one athlete who didn't give up his body for his sport. We don't have to be athletes. All we have to do is take care of our bodies, and you don't need that much time or effort. And it improves your memory. There are 3 studies now on this. One in 25-year-old to 30-year-olds, one in 35 to 40-year-olds, and one in 55 to 65-year-olds. Just doing 3 months of aerobic exercise, 21 minutes a week, 21 minutes a day, 3 times a week, increases the size of the hippocampus, which is your major memory center, by 22%. And they decline, their memory decline is less. The best thing you can do for memory isn't practice memory games, it is actually do physical activity. Manage stress. We don't give enough time, and all it takes is, if you will, we don't know whether you can get it in 5 minutes twice a day, but we know you can get it in 10 minutes twice a day. It doesn't even require the 15 minutes that we have instruct our employees and patients to do it. But at least in 10 minutes twice a day of meditating, you can get that. Avoid the 5 foods. Take 5 pills. What 5 pills? DHA, 900 milligrams a day. Can you get it from fish? Yes. But the only 2 fish in North America, I don't know, I cut that slide out apparently. The only 2 fish in North America still with DHA in it are salmon and trout. All the others are given soy and cornmeal and have adopted it, so they have omega-6s, not omega-3s. So you need to take DHA, 900 milligrams. Vitamin D for all of us, including everyone in Canada who lives north of Atlanta to Los Angeles, the sun doesn't have enough energy, even if you're out in it all day, between October 1st and April 15th to convert inactive to active vitamin D, so you need to get vitamin D. Calcium, 600 milligrams, and magnesium, 400 milligrams. Why the magnesium with the calcium? Because if all you get is the calcium, you get bloated, constipated, or something else that you won't like me for. Half of a multi twice a day. Why half a multi? and this is especially true for women in the pre-pregnancy or between the ages of 12 and 50. Why? Because 80 to 90% of us are short of one other vitamin or mineral other than vitamin D. And the easy way of preventing it is take half a multi twice a day. Why twice a day? Because you urinate out the water-soluble components in about 12 to 16 hours. So the only way to keep a steady level is to buy a pill splitter. It costs 61 cents at Walgreens and Walmart. Buy a pill splitter, cut the vitamin pill in half, and take half in the morning and half in the evening. And then if you're a man over 35, woman over 40, talk to your physician about 2 baby aspirin a day with half a glass of warm water before and afterwards. Why 2 baby aspirin? 1 baby aspirin gives you 14% protection in women against stroke, 14% protection in men against heart attack. 2 baby aspirin gives you 36%. It's that big a difference. We don't know why. It also is 2 baby aspirin is the level at which you decrease colon cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer by about 40%. So that's one of the things to talk to your physician about. Why do I say talk to your physician? Because it's got side effects. Why take half a glass of warm water before and afterwards? Because 70% of the side effects are gastric bleeding or GI bleeding from the aspirin itself landing on your gastric mucosa. So if it lands in the water and it's warm water and helps dissolve it, you decrease that problem by 70%. Floss and see a dental professional. Sleep. This is one I don't do well enough. 6.5 to 8 hours every night. We always short sleep, if you will. There are now enough DVRs and everything else that you can actually give the full due to sleep. Floss and see a dental professional every 6 months. Why that? Because inflammation in your gums sets up an immune reaction which attacks your arteries, making them older too. We don't know why. And 12, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here. It's to love something and do it daily. I get to love wellness and talking about it and do it daily. So enjoy red wine and wellness. Thank you.